Role responsibility would outline that our job or social role means that a particular outcome is something you need to take care of, whether you caused it or not. This means all of us are responsible for combating world-threatening issues such as climate change. With liability responsibility, the relevant people, which would be those who exist now, can be held accountable and may be blamed for the outcome which directly affects those who exist after we have died.
The past holds some responsibility for the present. The actions of those before us have impacted us now. For example, nuclear disasters such as Chernobyl in 1986, which has left the area unsafe for human inhabitancy for another 20,000 years. Considering now we may have more information available than that of the past, this could allow for more empathy towards the future, as well as we are more able to predict.
In virtue ethics, one has a responsibility to be virtuous, and that would mean as well that being good for the sake of yourself to achieve eudaimonia, one must also promote common good for the well-being of the entire community. A virtue ethicist would believe that, for example, helping to work towards a greener world for future generations would naturally fall into this. Regarding the doctrine of the mean, Aristotle set out that there is an excess and deficiency to every virtue. Perhaps it would be logical to suggest that putting in too much work to help future generations, in detriment to your own life, or putting in no work at all, would be considered unbalanced by Aristotle. Therefore, it would be argued that to be a virtuous person, one would have to contribute some work towards future generations.
Jeremy Bentham's utilitarian beliefs would suggest that we have to consider the greatest good for the greatest number, to have responsibility for the people after we have died, and to do the greatest good for the most will constantly benefit the future. Therefore, we have a moral responsibility to act in a way that minimises climate change, as it causes possibly irreversible harm such as rising sea levels, extreme weather and high temperatures, which will only continue to get worse without address and cause irreparable damage. However, this may be difficult to calculate, and to determine whether future people are happy is almost impossible to predict.
One cannot always predict the outcome of any political event, even a week into the future. Therefore, a person cannot be responsible to attempt to predict it. Indeed, people could take a guess at the political environment. This could also relate to wider issues too, such as the COVID-19 pandemic. It would be impossible to prepare for such unforeseeable circumstances. However, in other areas, such as the Black Lives Matter movement, it could be very much argued that the young people of today have the responsibility to help future generations by creating a more equal society for different people to thrive in, due to it making a difference to both people in the future and in the present.
A situation ethicist would believe that what is right is to always do the most loving thing, to maximise agape in any given situation. Fletcher, the founder of this ethical theory, would suggest that we are responsible for making our own moral decisions based on this singular rule. It should be argued that maximising love would also mean helping future generations. And it is person-centred, so we should help people. He also suggests that we should be pragmatic, so we are only responsible for effective acts.
One could argue that we only have a casual responsibility for what happens in the future. Perhaps we are only indirectly responsible for the poor climate, for example. Past generations, in fact, created the materials which we would understand to be dangerous today. Therefore, we did not directly create the problem, just contributed to it. However, we do in fact have a responsibility, with the increase of awareness around issues such as pollution, to at least attempt to eradicate the issues of today, to prevent issues for the future. For example, cutting down the use of plastic bags, which eventually ends up in massive landfills or in our oceans, destroying marine habitats and polluting the food chain. With our newfound tools comes newfound knowledge. We are in a position where we have the resources to change things, therefore are responsible for it.
Based off what we have discussed, we have concluded that we are responsible for the lives of those who will exist after we have died.